It began with a dead man floating in the sea and a briefcase chained to his wrist. In that case lay a secret so powerful it would deceive the Nazi war machine, mislead Hitler himself, and alter the course of World War II. What followed was not a battle fought with bombs or bullets, but a war of illusion, an intricate dance of lies and truth, where the smallest detail could decide the fate of nations. This is the story of Operation Mincemeat, the unbelievable tale of how a corpse fooled an empire. The year was 1943. The world was engulfed in chaos. Cities lay in ruins, skies roared with bombers, and every coastline was a potential battlefield. The Allies had clawed back victories in North Africa and were looking to strike into Europe to tear open Hitler's fortress from the south. But where? The answer seemed obvious: Sicily. That sun-baked island was the gateway to Italy, the stepping stone into continental Europe. Everyone knew it, which meant the Germans knew it too. The problem was simple: to attack Sicily successfully, they had to convince Hitler it wasn't the real target. In war, truth is often a weapon. But deception is an art. And in 1943, two men set out to paint their masterpiece. Ewan Montague was a barrister turned intelligence officer, a calm, meticulous man with a sharp mind for detail and a quiet taste for risk. His partner, Charles Chumley, tall, eccentric, with an inventive streak that often danced between brilliance and madness. Together, they worked in Britain's secretive intelligence division, known as the 20 Committee, named because the Roman numerals for 20, XX, formed a double cross. Their job: mislead the enemy at all costs. One afternoon, as they sat among a haze of cigarette smoke and stacks of classified papers in a cramped London office, Chumley brought up an old idea, one that had been tucked away in a dusty intelligence memo months earlier. It was absurd, almost grotesque. What if they used a dead body to plant false information? If the Germans believed the man was a courier who died when his plane crashed at sea, that his briefcase contained top-secret Allied invasion plans, perhaps they'd be fooled. The corpse would wash ashore, the papers would be found, and the Germans would move their troops in the wrong direction. Montague leaned back, thought for a long moment, then said something like, "It's so outrageous, it just might work." Thus began one of the strangest, boldest, and most successful deceptions in modern warfare. The first problem was both simple and horrifying. Where would they find the right body? The man had to appear as if he'd drowned after a plane crash, no visible injuries, a believable background, and enough of a resemblance to a military courier that the Germans wouldn't question it. The body couldn't look like it had been dead for days, and it had to pass a medical examination by German intelligence experts. For weeks, Montague and Chumley searched quietly through morgues and hospitals under the utmost secrecy. Then came a call from St. Pancras coroner's office. They had found a man who might just fit the bill, a Welsh drifter named Glyndwr Michael. He died after ingesting rat poison, possibly by accident. He was in his early 30s, thin, with features that could pass for a military man. The poison wouldn't leave visible marks that contradicted the story of drowning. He was, in death, the perfect candidate. The coroner gave permission for his body to be used in utmost secrecy. Few people would ever know who he truly was. Glyndwr Michael, a man forgotten by society, would soon become one of the most consequential figures of the war. But a body was only the beginning. To make the deception work, they needed to create a complete identity, a man who felt real down to the smallest detail. They would give him a name, a past, a fiancé, a pocket full of memories. He would need letters, receipts, keys, cigarettes, and personal effects, things that could convince any investigator this was no fabrication. They called him Major William Martin of the Royal Marines. A respectable, believable name, chosen from a list of real officers who existed only on paper. From that moment, William Martin began to live, at least in the files of British naval intelligence. They gave him a girlfriend, Pam. A photograph of a young woman, smiling shyly, was slipped into his wallet. Her real name was Jean Leslie, a secretary working in the intelligence department. She agreed to lend her image to the cause, unaware it would one day become one of the most famous faces in espionage history. They added love letters from Pam, carefully written in a casual, affectionate tone. "My darling Bill," one read, "I do love you so very much. Will you ever come back to me?" They even included a receipt for an engagement ring and a note of irritation from his bank about being overdrawn. Small imperfections that made him seem entirely human. Next came the piece de resistance, the briefcase. Inside, they would place false military documents crafted with precision, soaked in layers of plausibility. Among them was a personal letter from Lieutenant General Sir Archibald Nye to General Sir Harold Alexander, discussing an impending Allied invasion of Greece and Sardinia. The letter also mentioned, almost dismissively, that Sicily was being used as a decoy. That line, that single subtle detail, was the hook. The Germans would read it and believe they had stumbled upon the Allies' true intentions, that Greece, not Sicily, was the next target. Every word was deliberate. Every smudge, every fold in the paper, every ink blot, every fingerprint was meant to whisper authenticity. To help the illusion, Montague and Chumley even rubbed the documents with graphite to simulate the oils from a human hand. The next question was where the body should wash ashore. They needed a location where the discovery would look natural, but where German intelligence would quickly gain access to the papers. Spain, though officially neutral, was crawling with Nazi agents and sympathetic officials. The coastal town of Huelva, in particular, was known for its German contacts within the Spanish police and military. If the body appeared there, the documents would inevitably find their way to Berlin. The plan was finalized. They named it Operation Mincemeat, an almost grim joke. Given the nature of their cargo, the operation was approved by the British High Command. The logistics were intricate. The body was preserved in a sealed metal canister packed with dry ice and labeled optical instruments. The team transported it north by train under the cover of night. From there, it was loaded aboard the British submarine HMS Seraph, commanded by Lieutenant Bill Jewell, a man known for his calm, under pressure, and iron discipline. He was briefed in private and sworn to secrecy. The crew had no idea what their mysterious cargo truly was. On the night of April 30th, 1943, under the dim glow of a crescent moon, HMS Seraph surfaced off the coast of Huelva. The sea was calm, eerily silent. The sailors carried the canister onto the deck. When they opened it, a chill escaped, and within lay the body of Major William Martin, dressed in full uniform, with his briefcase chained to his wrist. Jewell read a short prayer for the dead. Then, as the men stood in solemn silence, they gently lowered the body into the water. The tide carried him away toward the Spanish shore. A few moments later, he was gone, drifting toward destiny. At dawn, local fishermen spotted a body floating near the beach. They pulled it ashore and alerted authorities. The British consul in Huelva, Harold Maine, was quickly informed. He played his role perfectly, expressing grave concern for the lost officer and making formal requests to have the documents returned. But behind the scenes, he subtly ensured that word of the discovery spread to the local German agents. The Spanish, sympathetic to the Axis, handled the papers with official caution but secret curiosity. Within days, the contents of Major Martin's briefcase were copied by the Obswehr, Germany's military intelligence agency. The documents were sent to Berlin through diplomatic channels. Back in London, Montague and Chumley waited in nervous silence. Days turned into weeks. Then came word from intercepts. The Germans had opened the documents. The plan was working. Hitler himself reviewed the materials. He was convinced. The documents fit perfectly with what he already feared, that Greece and Sardinia were the next Allied targets. His generals urged caution, but Hitler's paranoia overruled them. Orders were given. German divisions were moved from Sicily to Greece. Luftwaffe squadrons were redeployed. The German Navy repositioned its U-boats. The bait had been taken. When the Allies launched Operation Husky, the invasion of Sicily, on July 9, 1943, they faced far less resistance than expected. The German defenses were scattered and ill-prepared. Within weeks, the island was secured. Mussolini was overthrown, and Italy's surrender became inevitable. The deception had changed the course of the war. Back in Spain, Major William Martin was buried with full military honors in the local cemetery. His gravestone bore his name, rank, and the date of his death. No one outside the intelligence community knew the truth. To the world, he was a fallen British hero. But behind closed doors, the architects of Operation Mincemeat watched as their strange creation achieved the impossible. The Allies had deceived Hitler himself with nothing more than imagination, precision, and a dead man. Years later, when the operation was finally declassified, the world learned the truth that Major William Martin had never lived at all. His real name was Glyndwr Michael, a homeless man from Wales who had died in obscurity. In death, he became a silent savior. His body used to save thousands of lives and help turn the tide of history. The operation's brilliance lay not only in its audacity, but in its humanity. The intelligence officers understood something fundamental about human nature, that people believe what feels real, not what simply looks real. They built their deception on emotion, not logic. A love letter, a photograph, a receipt, a casual line in a letter. These were the threads that bound the illusion together. It wasn't the documents alone that fooled the Germans. It was the humanity inside them. Operation Mincemeat stands as a reminder of the strange moral shadows of war. To win, the British had to use a man's corpse as a weapon. To deceive their enemies, they had to construct a life around a lie. The lines between truth and fiction blurred, and somewhere in between lay victory. Asterisk, when you stand in the cemetery of Huelva today, you can still find his grave. The headstone reads, Major William Martin, Royal Marines. Died the 24th of April, 1943. Beloved son of John Glyndwr Martin and the late Antonia Martin of Cardiff, Wales. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Below the inscription lies a man who never lived, but whose death changed the course of human history. Asterisk, Operation Mincemeat was a victory of the mind. It was proof that in the darkest days of war, creativity and deception could achieve what armies could not. And though its architects are long gone, the lesson remains timeless in the theater of war. Truth and illusion are actors on the same stage, and the one who controls the script controls the world.